Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. Please enjoy this video on the Political Voices Network.
Good morning. I've been thinking about you a lot.
Good morning. Good morning.
Oh, Glenn, gotta just, your first tweet, because I looked, I almost called you. I think we've all been like, do we give people time? But you're one of the people I wanted to talk to, obviously, at the top of the list. You just said a bitter pill. I'm struggling to find words this morning, my friend, so I'll defer to the wisdom and eloquence of Abraham Lincoln. First, adhere to your purpose and you will soon feel as well as you ever did. On the contrary, if you falter and give up, you will lose the power of keeping any resolution and will regret it all your life. Second, one of my all-time favorite Lincoln quotes, be sure to put your feet in the right place, then stand firm. For now, find community and comfort in your loved ones, your friends, your neighbors. Support one another because the struggle for American democracy will continue. Thank you for that, Glenn. You're one of the lights that people look to. So give us just your reaction Tuesday night, your thoughts since then.
Yeah, well, first, I thought better of the American people.
Yeah.
I really did. I don't want to start pointing fingers either at politicians or campaigns or my fellow American voters who, made the choice in favor of hate and division and misogyny and xenophobia and prejudice. And I guess I just did point the finger, and that really was not my intent. But because a couple of things I want to say, anything you say that's positive feels like it's Pollyanna right now.
Yeah.
But you have to keep saying it. And so the darkness is descending on America. There's no two ways about it, because we're going to have an administration filled with Donald Trump's criminal associates and sycophants and oligarchs and lapdogs who are only going to be interested in enriching themselves and who will probably do more harm to Donald Trump's base and his voters than they do to many others. But the darkness is descending on America. So what do? We pull on our effing night goggles and we keep fighting like hell, because the light will come again. The light will come again.
Yeah.
And, people have been yelling at me in all caps ever since the election results came out that, you see, Glenn, justice doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I say, your anger at the injustice you're seeing proves that justice matters. It proves the very point, right? It does matter. That's why we're so damn angry at what has happened. But you know what? We keep fighting. We don't crawl into a hole and die. We keep fighting because the light will come again.
And it occurs to me, Glenn, that, you're a legal, analyst. You're a legal expert, a former prosecutor. We're not in any kind of normal world anymore. We are not. We are not in a nation of. We're not in a nation of laws. We're in a nation of not just men, one man. We're in some extra legal place that I know you don't recognize. I wanted to get your take. I don't know if you saw Max Burns' piece, America Will Regret Its Decision to re-elect Donald Trump, but he just writes, our democratic institutions are not ready for what comes next. Neither are the American people. A man with 34 felony convictions can't win the presidency in a nation where trust in institutions is high. It's only in a culture where the justice system has long since lost its legitimacy that a man with such a thick criminal record as Trump glides by relatively unremarked. That one man can so effortlessly game America's institutions to his own benefit says as much about the decrepit state of America's institutions as it does about the moral decrepitude of the crook. The 9 years of the Trump era have taken a bat to our democracy, and Trump's MAGA movement has exploited the nation's systemic weakness at every turn. Political misinformation flooded social media networks owned by Trump's key allies or by Trump personally. Meanwhile, Trump and compliant Republican lawmakers torched public trust in the courts, first by appointing an ethically vacant Supreme Court and later by urging his followers to hate and distrust not only the judges who tried him, but the entire rigged justice system. I mean, that kind of sums it up, doesn't it?
It does. And it all funnels up to the rot at the top, the rot at the top being the Supreme Court. So, yeah, I'm going to be doing an autopsy on how the Department of Justice let us down, dropped the ball, because Donald Trump could have been successfully prosecuted years ago, but he wasn't. And that was really due to DOJ's delay and inaction. They were finally prodded into action by Congress, by the J6 Select Committee. And it's the rot at the top that really is, I think, the main problem right now, because I'm going to be talking about how the 14th Amendment, the text of the 14th Amendment, says that Donald Trump may not be sworn in as president unless 2/3 of both houses vote to remove his disqualification. That's what the text of the 14th Amendment, Section 3, says. If you took an oath to support and defend the Constitution and thereafter you engaged in insurrection or gave aid and comfort to insurrectionists, which Donald Trump does every day, you are disqualified. And the only way you can be sworn in is if 2/3 of Congress votes to remove the disqualification. I have to believe Jamie Raskin and company are hunkering down and preparing to take that position come certification time, because it's the very text of the Constitution, Steph.
Yeah.
So I talk about how the rule of law is supposed to apply, but we all know it has not been applied to Donald Trump as intended.
No,
but that doesn't mean we can stop talking about how it's supposed to work, because then we're normalizing the abuses of Donald Trump.
This lawlessness. I mean, someone said, how long before, Comer, who knows, argues that, the 22nd Amendment shouldn't apply and Trump can run again in 2028 and the Supreme Court agrees. I mean, who knows where we are now? Because
then we become Russia and we're all standing in line for toilet paper.
Yeah. Well, we already did that, remember? So here's our first headline up that we knew was coming. Justice in Trump's New York criminal case considering tossing his felony convictions, because here we are. Trump, as we know, was convicted on 34 counts of falsifying business records. He was set to be sentenced November 26. Whether that hearing is going to happen now being decided by Judge Merchan. He will give himself until next week to decide if tossing those convictions is appropriate. Trump's lawyers are going to argue to the judge the sentencing should never happen, because now that Trump is president-elect, they will say he's entitled to the same constitutional protections as a sitting president and should be protected from state actors, and in this case, state prosecutors and judges overseeing the case. Trump's 2 federal cases are also expected to be dropped while Jack Smith winds them down. As far as for Trump's RICO case in Georgia, there is no clear answer as to whether a state-level prosecutor, Fani Willis, can prosecute a sitting president. Trump's victory now forces Willis to confront that constitutional question, in addition to the existing legal issues that have already cast uncertainty over the Georgia case's future. So let's start with New York. Take us through it.
Yeah. At the moment, the criminals have won. There's no sugarcoating it. But here is what I've been saying since long before the election about how New York is going to play out. On November 12th, Judge Merchan is going to rule on whether he has to throw out all of Donald Trump's convictions because of this harebrained presidential immunity ruling the Supreme Court handed down. I predict it's going to be an easy call. Judge Merchan is going to say, no, of course not. Most of this conduct that Donald Trump committed, these crimes, have nothing to do with the presidency, and many were committed before he was sworn in. So no. But at that moment, I've been saying all along, because immunity is immediately appealable, Judge Merchan won't proceed to sentencing a week or 2 weeks later, because Donald Trump will rightfully, I hate to use that word, be able to appeal the immunity ruling. And then we're in this constant, waiting game as this thing makes its way up through the appeals court. So that's what I see happening in New York. I don't think the convictions will be tossed out. I think everything will be put on hold. Now, let me finish up with the state stuff before I go to the federal stuff, because the prevailing wisdom is that when a state tries to prosecute a sitting president, state court prosecutions are paused. They're put on hold while he's in office, and then they resume when he leaves office. So the cases shouldn't be thrown away or tossed out. They're just put on hold for, who knows how long while Donald Trump is in office. So they will continue, but they will be paused. The federal cases, I was really disappointed to hear that Jack Smith is winding them down. But let's talk about what he's gearing up to do, because I think he's also gearing up to do 2 things. He's winding them down because, again, we have this horrific opinion from the Department of Justice Office Legal Counsel that says, we don't think it's a good idea to be able to prosecute a sitting criminal president. We think he should be given leeway to commit all the crimes against the American people he wants while in office, and he can't be prosecuted. That's a stupid memo, and I wish we would revisit it. But Jack Smith said, listen, if I'm bound by that policy of the Department of Justice, then I have to wind these cases down because I can't prosecute Trump while he's in office anyway. What he could do is ask Judge Chutkan to just suspend the cases rather than dismiss them. I don't know that he will. Here's the 2 things he's gearing up to do, I believe. 1, special counsel issues a report. at the conclusion of his investigation, just like Bob Mueller did, exposing Trump-Russia coordination and exposing all of the obstruction of justice crimes Donald Trump committed. That's in volume 2 of the Trump-Russia report, for which Donald Trump has never been prosecuted. Jack Smith, I believe, is probably putting that report together, and it will be disclosed. And fortunately, then we will see and be able to preserve all of the evidence of Donald Trump's crimes. He won't be prosecuted anytime soon, but I suspect we're going to see that. And here's the other thing I believe he's doing. Remember those 6 unindicted co-conspirators that were in the Trump indictment?
Yeah.
I think we may very well see federal indictments of those 6 in the coming weeks.
Oh.
Why? 2 reasons. One, if you don't indict them now, well, then we're going to lose the statute of limitations. Time is going to run out while Donald Trump is in office. So I think he has to indict them, if only to document the crimes they committed to try to help Donald Trump steal the 2020 election. And one more thing, Steph, I'm sorry I'm running off. But if you indict Donald Trump's co-conspirators, you're forcing Donald Trump's hand to either have his corrupt attorney general tank those cases or to issue corrupt pardons. We need to force Donald Trump's hand to make those corrupt decisions and take those unlawful actions, because it will all help down the road. So let's not self-censor and decline to indict the co-conspirators just because Donald Trump will act corruptly to get rid of those cases.
Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. I hope you'll join me on my new audio podcast, Justice Matters. I'll be using my 30 years as a federal prosecutor and Army JAG to unpack, break down, and explain the legal issues of the day, particularly where the legal intersects with the political. Please look for Justice Matters with Glenn Kirshner wherever you generally get your podcasts.